From the heart of the land of the Guardians, where the dog pound roars, the Cavs soar, and heartbreak is just part of the game, this is Three and Out, Cleveland Sports Talk. With Jason, Drew, and Michael, three diehard fans breaking down the highs, the lows, and everything in between. No fluff, no filters, just Cleveland sports the way it's meant to be. Now let's get into it. Here's your hosts, Michael, Jason, and Drew.
Good evening. Welcome to Three and Out. You're sitting here with 2/3 of Three and Out. I guess that would make us second and long. You have Drew.
Oh, good evening.
Yes, and Jason. And we are here to talk. We are here. We're here to talk Cavs. We are settled on the first round of the playoffs after the play-ins finished up yesterday. The Miami Heat, the 10 seed going into the play-ins, took it to the Atlanta Hawks. It took overtime. It took extra minutes. And overtime was all Miami, in my opinion. I mean, it was
all Miami. It took over.
Dominant fashion to seal it up. I mean, when I look at their the play-in games, they dominated Chicago. I mean, they beat Chicago by 19, I think it was, in that first playing game that earned them the right to play Atlanta in Atlanta. The crowd was, yeah. So not an easy journey, but Coach Spoelstra has, he is consistently getting his guys in the playoffs, and I think it's testament to his coaching.
He's the Pittsburgh of the NFL.
Yeah.
But it does give him a roster, and he'll get him to the playoffs.
Yeah. And they're the first 10 seed. I think I heard yesterday that they've done this play-in for 5 years, and this is the first time a 10 seed has made it into the actual playoffs, which is kind of, it's good on them. Miami is not the team that we were hoping, I guess, if we put a wish list on who we wanted to play in that first round.
No, of the four, they were, if I had to rank them from the one I want to play the most to the one I want to play the least, they were third.
Okay.
I didn't want to play Orlando, and then I didn't want to play Miami, and then I didn't really care about the other two.
Much. But, yeah.
And not because, I don't think the Cavs can win, but I think the style that Miami plays is one that the Cavs have struggled with throughout the season.
Right. Well, the season series. How did we do in that season series?
We won the season. We won the season series 2-1. We lost the first game in Miami, and then won the next two. And in all of them, we scored pretty well, except the first one. We were actually under 110. That was one of our first games, I believe, under 110. And so their defense got to us, and that's what they do. Of the teams in the playoffs, they get the best rated defense coming in, and we have the best rated offense. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. But against the Hawks, I mean, that was one of the things you saw. The Hawks came into that game with one bona fide star. After they traded away Hunter, after Jalen Johnson got hurt, they had one bona fide star, and Trae Young.
Yep.
And Trae Young was abysmal. He was horrid. Any shot he took, he was rushing. He would get into the lane, and there was somebody with an arm in his face. He was trying to throw it over. Even some of the threes he took were rushed, which sometimes he makes them. But with their length and their athleticism, it makes those even harder to make. And if you watch the game going down the stretch, who made the plays for the Hawks when they got back into the game and took a 6-point lead? George Niang, Karis LeVert. You rarely heard Trae Young's name called. Yeah. They completely took him out of the game down the stretch. And a guy like that can't let him.
Right.
And their defense can smother you if you don't have a good game plan coming in.
Well, I know we're not talking about the Hawks, but Yang, obviously, ex-Cav this year, he once he got in the game, I don't think they pulled him back out. He played a lot of minutes.
He played a lot, which he can't because he doesn't move that much. He doesn't get off his feet. He's not, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I miss George Niang. I was hoping we could get a series against him. I don't know if you saw, there was actually a funny exchange on Twitter or X between him and Ty Jerome.
Okay.
Ty Jerome said something to him, when they won the first game about, something along the lines of, you better make sure you don't win this game because you don't want to come play here or whatever. And George Niang tweeted back at him, "Yeah, I know. You're the one who forced me out of the city so you could bring your best friend in."
Nice.
But unfortunately, we won't be playing him. We won't get to see that interaction.
No.
It would have been nice, but
Well, maybe he'll
we're
come.
gonna talk.
Maybe he'll come and watch. Who knows?
We'll give him a free ticket.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'll give him a ring if we win.
He will. I think he does get a ring
He
if he
does.
wins, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You get it right.
So that'll be nice. So we discussed what the keys to the series would be. What, Drew? What are three big main keys that you can say are key for the Cavs?
I think the biggest key is going to be the style of play. How is this series played? Is it a series that's played in the high 90s and low hundreds, that's shot in the high 30s and low 40s, that is more of an isolation game, a one-on-one game? Or is this a game that's going to be played in the mid to high teens and low 120s? I don't know that we're going to get into the 130s. I don't know. They're too good a defense. But I think the style of play, like I said, we, at the end of the regular season, had the number one offense in terms of points per game in the entire NBA.
Yeah.
Almost 122 a game. And by defensive rating, not points per game, but defensive rating, they had the best defense in the league.
Okay.
And so it's a very big contradiction in styles. And so I think for the Cavs, the key is going to be playing their style and not being forced to play the Miami style.
Right.
Now, I still think if the game is slowed down, we have more guys who can create. If it turns into a one-on-one game, from Darius to Donovan to Hunter to Mobley, over what they have, which is guys really like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo.
Yeah.
Maybe some Wiggins. I want to talk about him later. But they don't have a lot of guys that can create their own shot. So I think the key is going to be, let's speed the game up. Not that we want to play bad defense, but we want to keep the pace up.
Right. So it's a tempo thing.
Yeah. So I think the tempo, we want to play in the high teens to low 120s and not in a game that's teetering on the 100-point.
So not to get offbeat, but who in our lineup is key to that tempo?
I think it's going to be Jared Allen and Evan Mobley.
Okay.
Because what they have in, I always call him Baby Wemby. To be honest, right now I can't think of his name. Kalel Ware. And Bam Adebayo.
Mm-hmm.
Those are guys who are going to crash your offensive glass. And they're a good shooting team. They're not a great shooting team.
Yeah.
And so I think, and I would throw Dean Wade in there and, as kind of the sub coming off the bench, we've got to limit them to one shot.
Okay.
If we can limit them to one shot, get the ball, get it to our guards, or Mobley just bring it up himself and not let them set their half-court defense up. If we give up, 10, 12, 15 offensive rebounds a game, it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
Now we're giving them extra possessions. We're slowing the game down. Now they're making baskets. We're taking it out of bounds, and they're able to get back and set up their defense. That changes the flow of the game.
Well, and if you, and I know you watched the game yesterday, but they got off to a fast start with a 10-0 run, but 4 offensive rebounds, in that first, Atlanta couldn't make a shot. And even when Miami missed a shot, they were getting their offensive rebounds and putting it back up. They got out to a fast start. And it seemed like the runs that they had, Bam was getting those offensive rebounds. I don't know if that's just,
And it happened late too.
Yeah.
When Atlanta was making the run and got up 6, there was a couple possessions, I don't believe they were back to back, where actually it's George Niang, again, love the minivan, but he doesn't get off his feet very well. And Adebayo was behind him. He had a box out, but he used his length and athleticism, jumped up over him, tipped the ball. They got possession, got another basket.
Yeah.
Those are huge possessions, either to start a game, you're setting the tone, or late when you're trying to close out a game, you cannot give up those extra possessions.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Key number 2.
Key number 2 is, I think it's going to be Darius Garland. We've seen with him, it's been a tale of two halves. In pre-All-Star, and I hope I have my numbers correct, but pre-All-Star game, he was, when it came to floaters and shots around the rim, he was shooting about 60%, which was tops in the league, around the top in the league for guards. I believe maybe even the tops league. But even more importantly is in close games, which I believe they say it's a 5-point game in the last 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. It's a 5-point game. So you're talking games that come down to possessions, which that's a playoff game.
Yeah.
He was in, when I say far and away, I'm saying historically good, like best ever when it came to statistical success in those close games. Shots making, assist to turnover ratios, those types of things. That was pre-All-Star break.
Okay. Mr. Clutch.
Right.
Pre-All-Star.
100%.
Okay.
And after the All-Star break, those numbers dipped. His 3-point percentage was down around 30%. His 2-point field goal percentage was right around 40%. His shots around the rim was in I want to say the low to mid 40s. So you're talking a 20-point dip.
Yep.
And his clutch points, it was, I wish I would pulled that up. But he dropped into just a usual Darius.
Okay.
Right. Not bad, but it was what his usual numbers are from year to year coming into this year before the All-Star break. So if we can get Darius to be pre-All-Star break Darius, and he can get back to that, which he showed a flash in the game that Donovan sat out, the closeout game. He showed
against
his
Chicago,
swagger.
I think it was, right?
Yeah. We talked about it. He had kind of his swagger back. He had his confidence. You can kind of see when he's feeling good. Now, he didn't really play much after that.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that game
is an indicator, of what we can expect,
right.
maybe.
Because we need that. It's going to be a close game. They're a good team. They're a good defensive team. They're going to find ways to keep themselves in it. And so we need Darius to be able to help us close out games.
So do you think I guess what do you attribute the drop off after the All-Star? Is it a Darius Cavs thing, or do you think that these other teams are, after the break started making adjustments and,
No, it actually is a Darius thing. And I think Darius would tell you that. And even if you watched his interview after his good game, he even said it was kind of like a monkey off his back.
Okay.
I think the pressure built up, and you've been an athlete. You have a bad game. If you let it sit on you, it leads to another bad game. Another bad, and then all of a sudden you're in the snowfall, where or free fall, where you can't figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And so I think it was mostly him because, again, the quality of his shot, when you look at the quality of his shots, those actually went up.
Okay.
But the success of those shots went down.
Okay.
And
all right.
so, it's just a mental thing I think that he had to break through. Sometimes when you putt, it goes in. Sometimes it doesn't. It misses by an inch.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are the hardest ones to take, when you just miss and they rim out.
Yeah.
And he was getting good shots and they weren't going in. Those are tough.
Okay. What about the third key?
I think it comes down to coaching. Obviously you talked about Spoelstra. The guy's a phenomenal coach. He wins, doesn't matter. They trade away their best player, arguably their best player, Jimmy Butler.
Mm-hmm.
They got a good player, Andrew Wiggins, back, but actually got better. That's very rare in today's NBA.
Yep.
You trade away your best player, but get better. Look at the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
Trade away your best player and get worse. Now, obviously some injuries played into that, but still. But he just knows how to get guys to play together, to play hard, and to buy in. Again, I hate tooting Pittsburgh's horn, but whatever lineup they have, they get to the playoffs.
Tomlin, they get a winning season, they get into the playoffs somehow.
So they're going to try to ugly up the game because in terms of sheer, I think, matchup talent, which maybe we can get into, I don't know, we'll get into today, but maybe on Monday, you kind of get into the matchups, especially after one game and seeing what each team is doing.
Yeah.
But, they're going to find ways to try to exploit matchups, to try to create things. He's a fantastic coach. But Kenny has shown this year that he's up to the task. Very rarely this year has he made adjustments, has he made rotations, he made changes that didn't work.
Right.
I think he has a very good pulse on this team, and I think they've bought in to what he's selling. And so I think it's going to come down to, it's a chess match. One coach is going to make an adjustment. What is the counter adjustment the other coach makes? And I think it's going to be important for Kenny to make adjustments first.
Yeah.
And see how Spoelstra responds.
Okay.
And put the pressure on that coaching staff to match what we're doing. Throw out some lineups that may throw them off kilter because, again, they don't have the diversity of lineup, of the ability to make diverse lineups like we do.
Right.
And so they've got to go with some of their core guys as much as possible. So if we can throw some different stuff at them and, kind of keep them on their heels, I think that can keep Kenny ahead of that chess match.
Okay.
And I think that's going to play huge into our success this series.
All right. So when we talk about the Cavs going into this series, is there a player? I have my player picked out, but is there a player that you have that you expect or want to see step up and really make an impact in this playoff series?
The X factor, I think, for this series that I expect to be better than he was in the regular season. And I'm gonna digress to get back to. Before we started recording, we were talking about a guy on the Miami Heat, Terry Rozier, who plays, good player, 10 points a game, 20 minutes a game, whatever, very average, but good player. But throughout his career, even when he was with Charlotte, when he plays the Cavs, he plays to a different level.
Yeah.
Because he's from Cleveland. And there's got to be just that pull to do better against the Cavs because you're from Cleveland. So that's why I think the X factor, the guy I expect to be better than he was during the regular season is Max Strus.
Okay.
Coming from Miami, knowing the players, knowing the system, knowing the coach.
It's good to have a chip.
Yeah, knowing how to play in the playoffs because he was one of the cogs. His whole contract from the Cavs came because of how we played in the playoffs with the Heat.
Yeah.
That's why he got that contract.
Yeah.
And so I expect him to be, not 9 points shooting mid-30s from three. I expect him to be more of 15-point shooting, low to mid-40s from three.
Yeah.
In this series because it's just a little bit of extra edge, a little bit of extra motivation.
Yeah.
So that's a guy that I expect to step up and have a bigger series than maybe we think.
Okay. Well, on Rozier, playing in Cleveland, being from Cleveland, he's probably going to be represented, as far as his family's going to be there. I don't know if he's going to get minutes. He didn't get minutes in the Hawks game. So it'll be interesting, maybe keep an eye on that. But my player I want to see step up is Ty Jerome. I think he creates matchup problems. This season against Miami, his numbers are down. I think for the season as a whole, he's like in that 43% from three, range. And against Miami, he was in the mid-20s, percentage. So, I think maybe he might have something to prove. But if we can get his numbers in the mid 40s from three, and I just think, again, I think he, a guy with his size, I think he creates matchup problems, and if he can knock down the shots, it could be.
You're onto something too because I think it pulls some of the pressure off those other guards.
Yeah.
If he can be effective, now there won't be so much focus on Darius and Donovan because they also got to pay attention to Ty Jerome.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, when we talk about the Heat, are there guys that maybe concern you a little bit more than anybody else? When you look at their lineup, we talked about them not having the depth, but they do have a pretty solid core.
They do. The one I think that concerns me is Andrew Wiggins.
Okay.
Because he's won a championship. He was traded as part of the Butler trade.
Yep.
Got a little bit of chip on his shoulder. got a bigger role here in terms of leadership and being a veteran presence than he had in Golden State. And, bringing that experience and that little bit of edge on top of what he brings. I mean, he's a guy who can defend 3 to 4 positions depending on our lineup. He's an extremely good defender. Then you add in his ability to get you 20 to 30 points a game.
Yeah.
I think he's a dual threat that, the stage isn't going to be too big for him. He's been there. I mean, he was one of the big reasons that the Warriors won their last championship. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so he's a guy that, do I think DeAndre Hunter can defend him? I do. But by all accounts, he's going to start off going against probably Max Strus or Donovan Mitchell. And that's a little bit of a tougher matchup being undersized.
Yeah.
And they can look to go to him early and get him going in those games if that's who we start.
Well, and, just to piggyback what you said, when the Heat needed a game-winning shot to end regulation, that's who they went to. And he didn't miss that shot by much,
No.
An inch, I think, or two. But, he's a clutch guy. And, the stage, like you said, the stage isn't too big. And, definitely somebody to keep an eye on. My concern is Hero. He made some clutch 3-pointers. He seems to have an affection or whatever you want to say for turnovers as well,
Yeah.
which I guess, maybe that comes with
Yeah.
the territory when you play like he does, but he's streaky and
He is.
the Heat in general, man, they just, the Chicago game, they were on fire. They had overtime, obviously, against the Hawks, just complete domination. They were,
It was, Hawks forgot to show up.
Yeah.
But really, I'd give that again to the Miami Heat defense.
Yeah.
The defense was fantastic.
Yeah. So but he's a guy that I would like to, maybe keep an eye on. He's definitely concerned. I'm not so sure he's a matchup problem, but, left alone.
But he's a matchup problem in that he's going to be, I agree. He's probably going to be a guy that's going to look to get you, your consistent 25, 30 points.
Yeah.
And which means he's going to be constantly looking to attack, which can create foul problems. It can create, if they start running off pick and rolls, trying to make mismatches, that can create some issues because, he's not going to stop. He's going to keep coming at you. If he's misses 8 shots in a row, in his mind, you're going to make the next 8. So you're going to keep shooting them. You're not going to shoot. He's not going to stop because he's having a bad game.
Right. So do you, expectation wise, what would you say, where are you leaning there as far as expectations?
Well, obviously, to me, the expectation, we can hopefully talk more about this on Monday after we see a game, but I expect the Cavs to win. I don't see any team that should be able to beat them in the 7-game series until we get to Boston.
Okay.
Now, we got to get to Boston first. But I think the biggest part of this series is we have to get game 1. Like you were talking about earlier, the Heat come into this game, they won in Chicago, they won in Atlanta. The road does not scare them.
Right.
On the road. We've got to come out and we've got to set a tone in game 1 that says this is our house. Even if you win in Miami, this is our house. You're not winning the game here.
Right.
And so I still expect it to be a 4-1 series, a gentleman's sweep. But if we can play the way we're capable of playing.
Right.
If we play the way that the Heat can force you to play because of the defense, I think it could go 6.
Okay.
I think it could.
Well, we're going into the series with the second best home record in the league, next to OKC. So, the expectation should be that we honor our court. We hold our home court, and we take, what is it? We play the first 2 there, right? Before we go down to Miami. So, I think I agree with you. I think the expectations are that we win. I too think it's going to be 4-1. That's what my my prediction was. So I guess we'll see how it goes. But you got to win one
One at
to
a
start
time.
off. So that's
Win game one and win one at a time. And the biggest thing I'm excited about is we're healthy.
yes, yeah,
We're healthy coming into this. So there's no excuses. There's no,
Yep.
we hold, everything in our hands. We won home court advantage. Now it's up to the guys to go out and perform.
right. We've had most of our starters rested the last 3 games of the regular season. A lot, significant minutes rested, plus the play-in games. So we're going into tomorrow's game rested and healthy, which is
And hopefully hungry.
yes. Yeah, number 1 seed. How long has it been since we've been in that position? So
Well, first time we've ever done it without LeBron.
right.
So it'd be a fun ride.
Yeah,
It'd be a fun
absolutely.
ride.
Absolutely. So that's going to be it for today. We're going to put a bow on this. We will be back Monday. Monday is going to be mock draft Monday as we head into the NFL draft week. And we will also have a little bit of a blurb on what's going on with the Cavs and the guards as well after game 1. So we appreciate you listening. If you like what you hear, leave a comment, refer your friends, hit a like and subscribe, and we will keep giving you this good information. Thanks again for joining.
Yep. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you later. Sayonara.
Thank you for joining us on 3 and Out. Be on the lookout for more episodes.